Welcome back to the eSellerCafe News Roundup. Today is the 21st of August, 2017. My name is Dave, and I'm your host alongside Mr. Richard Meldner. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine. I'm actually in familiar surroundings.
Are you feeling a little bit weird that you've not got bags with you, a passport in one hand? You're feeling a little bit, this is weird. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, it is. It's weird actually. Pulling clothes out of a drawer versus a bag.
Waking up in your own bed. Wow, what's going on?
Yeah, it's not like. But that'll end in 3 days. 2 days.
back on the road, or in the air.
Back on the road.
So Richard, it's exciting because we have some breaking news. But before we get onto the breaking news, we're going to have a quick rundown of what we're going to be chatting with you about today. And of course, as always, all the links to read the full stories are in the description down below. We also, for anyone watching live, there's a live chat. You can ask questions, add comments about anything that we talk about. We'd love to get involved, and we will talk back. We can read them. So with that said, Amazon versus Ticketmaster, Facebook Marketplace expands to Europe, Facebook Marketplace teams up with eBay to offer daily deals. We have the eBay releases promoted listings for single quantity items. Amazon kills movie DVDs in the UK and Germany by closing down Love Film. Amazon is now promising to deliver in 2 minutes or less. That's a curious one. Etsy updates sellers on new search tests. Alipay and Yelp to extend US services for Chinese tourists. We've got Alibaba Gateway 17 coming back, but this time to Canada in September. We have Demystifying eBay's questions and answers. And then we have a bit of a feature on what 3 words, a new kind of street address. We also did an interesting solutions spotlight this week, which I'll talk about towards the end, where you guys get to find out more about Parcel Station. And if time allows, we will have a little bit of some other quick bits of news which didn't have, which got sort of pushed down the list for the bigger news pieces. So depending on how we're getting on with time, we will maybe throw in a bit.
It was an interesting week. It wasn't that there was really a big news item. There was just lots of news items.
Lots of stuff going on.
You had to start like, okay, triage. What is important and relative?
Yeah, it was a bit of a priority thing. And I know we've got loads of stuff in the pipeline coming up this week as well. So it's been a good week last week for news.
Yeah, exactly.
So with that said, what is the breaking news? It involves eBay. What's going on?
Well, Hal Lawton, who was the senior vice president of North America for eBay, left the company. And, he's been sort of a bit the face of eBay at a lot of the conferences, like eBay Open. He did a lot of the general talk stuff and the introductory stuff and mingled with people. I mean, he was almost in some ways more the face of eBay than when he was the CEO. And so this morning, eBay sent out a press release saying, well, we are promoting or updating, the worker jobs or job descriptions of 3 other folks, and Hal is no longer with us. And really, to be honest, very surprised. He's only been with the company since 2015. He was credited very much to be part of that whole changeover from the previous regime to the split of eBay and PayPal. So it's, a little bit out of the blue and not sure what to make out of it, if there was something going on behind the scenes, maybe some differences in opinion, or if he was just offered a job that he couldn't refuse. He's definitely at a very high pay grade. So it would have to be something that would be probably CEO level or whatever at another company. Because he's that high up in the hierarchy typically. So it'll be interesting to see where he lands. I don't think it'll have really a huge impact on eBay in the short term or the long term. Really, obviously they have a lot of new people, but they also have a lot of people that have been with the company for a while, which quite frankly is a bit unusual for Silicon Valley. If you look at a lot of people's resumes for Silicon Valley, you see like 2 years here, 2 years there.
They seem to hop around a lot, don't they? I guess it's a very headhunting, rich environment.
Yeah, and you know what? I forgot I was going to look this up before we went on live, and let me see if I can find it. I was wondering what for example, Hal had done previously.
I'm just on his LinkedIn now. Funny you mentioned that. He was the senior vice president of merchandising for Home Depot
for 10 years.
Yeah, and then he was a director for Buffalo Wild Wings. I love that place.
Yeah, that's 11 months.
11 months there.
That wasn't clearly not his forte.
Was that,
yeah,
then
he's not a jumper like a lot of them are. He seemed to be, fairly.
Yeah, I mean, to do 10 years at Home Depot, yeah, that's quite. Yeah. And obviously before that, he had a bit of a, was it financial background?
Yeah, looks like.
Oh no. Yeah, McKinsey and Company for 4 years. So, and an engineer before that. So yeah, he's pretty steady in his career. So it is a curious one. It does make me wonder whether he was headhunted, offered a unbelievable package. Because like you said, he was high up in eBay. You know, like you said, he's in the 6-figure salary by a decent margin. So,
and I'm sure he had stock options too, that if the company hit certain levels, he would be able to targets that he would do very well with it. So for somebody who's in the middle of a turnaround phase to kind of leave, and it's not like the turnaround is going bad; it's going actually pretty good. All the numbers are going up, So it'll be curious to see where he ends up, and maybe we'll find out one of these days what the real reason behind it is. But it is what it is. Nothing you and I can do about it, or the other 160 some odd million people on eBay. We just got to move on with our lives and keep selling and trying to make money.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I was just checking his Twitter to see if there was anything fresh from him there. No, nothing. In fact, one of his last tweets was about eBay Open, which I'm sure he was attending. So it is. Yeah,
he was a big part of eBay Open. I watched all the videos from eBay Open, and I mean, he was a huge part of it. He did the whole introductory piece the day before. He did the keynote. He also did on stage with 3 other folks from eBay that I remember. So, and he was also part of a lot of the other stuff, with the sellers and those the prizes, the awards that were given away. So he was really part of all that, And typically, if you think somebody is leaving or not happy, you can sometimes tell just that they're going through the motions. So he didn't seem to be that. He didn't seem to be going through the motions. But who knows?
Who knows? So that's the breaking news pieces that Hal has left eBay for something new, but we do not know what that is yet. So this press release only came out today.
Well, there is that Uber CEO job, right?
There is, which obviously Meg Whitman was very keen to separate herself from. So yeah, who knows? Maybe that would sort of fit, I guess. Who knows? Anyway, next up, we've got Amazon versus Ticketmaster. Now, this is a curious one because Amazon are already sort of in the ticket market here in the UK. Quite a new contender, but I've got to say I've used it myself. It works very, very well. And it seems to me that Amazon seems to have their own exclusivity, like allocation of tickets for some events, because I've seen like Ticketmaster or Live Nation or whoever run out of tickets before, and you can still get them on Amazon. So whether people just don't know about Amazon tickets yet here in the UK, but they definitely are making waves in the industry. So what's going on over the pond with you, Richard?
Well, Ticketmaster here has been sort of the 1,800-pound gorilla. It's not just the 800-pound gorilla, the 1,800-pound gorilla.
Yeah.
Everybody's tried to go against Ticketmaster. Basically, was just sort of swept over. They make a lot of deals they have a lot of deals with, through with the venues, with artists, through Live Nation, which actually owns them now. Into the whole music industry. Also, basically, they're tied into every major sport in the US. I think the only ones that you can't buy, I think NASCAR is the only ones that don't use Ticketmaster because they got their own ticketing system. So I think I read somewhere it's like over 80% of all tickets sold in the US go through Ticketmaster. So, over the years, some artists have complained, have tried to do things on the side, but it's never really worked because there never was any scale, and they would run into issues with venues saying, well, we have an exclusive agreement with Ticketmaster because they pay us X amount, and for that, we have to go through them, and so that's how they were kind of contractually doing it. Amazon could possibly change that a bit. They're big enough to go into these venues and say, hey, let's do this or let's do that, you know, and we're going to give you some money for sponsorship, or we're going to do this. You know, they can buy out contracts. They would be big enough to do that. They could also come in through maybe the back door, like they're already doing a deal with the NFL to show Thursday night football games now on Amazon, in addition to CBS, in addition to NFL Network. They're actually really just a third outlet for that.
It's an also-ran. Yeah,
it's an
you can also watch it here. Yeah,
yeah, but it's a global also-ran, which is what the key is, and they're getting, you know, I think I read 1.8 million for a commercial, you know, something like that. What they're trying to get. So they're not looking for chump change there. So clearly that is part of another big strategy. I've heard rumors that they're interested in other sporting ventures, you know, so through those means, and of course the fact that they're, you know, have their Prime Music and Prime Video, they got their hands already into the movie industry, the TV industry, as well as maybe to a slight degree the music industry. They might be able to do more, actually do damage to Ticketmaster. They would be probably one of the very few that's big enough to do that. And and I think, you know, StubHub, for example, which is eBay's platform, which is actually a second tier market, so it's a resale market, is doing very well. I don't think Amazon is going to come out doing, if this is going to come to fruition, it's going to come out being the second tier. I think they want to be the primary tier. Yeah, but on the other hand, Ticketmaster is also getting into the second tier market. And one of the biggest problems that Ticketmaster always has is that all this stuff is very clunky for digital use. You know, it's like the smartphone is clunky. The app is, nothing works really well. So if there's one thing Amazon knows how to do, is how to do something that people can use and easily use. And if they can do that and get that out in the market, and then convince venues or sports leagues or artists to use them, it could be a game changer in the United States, and might actually create competition in the event ticketing business.
I think that's it's a very good point, and I think there's a few key opportunities here for Amazon. The first one is, like, it's very hard for anyone to get into that space. You basically need an audience, and that's exactly what Amazon has. They have a huge audience, one of, you know, probably, you know, one to rival that of Ticketmaster, you know, especially globally when you think about it. But aside from that, one of the biggest things, especially going on at the UK at the minute, is with ticket touts and people who, you know, buy 8 tickets and then sell them on for double, triple, quadruple face value, and sorts of ruins the experience for a lot of genuine fans. So I think if Amazon could find a way to lock the ticket allocation to the person who registered the account and go through certain verifications of that, all of a sudden the artists can now be, because I know there's been a lot of UK artists who are so against the ticket tout thing. I know Ed Sheeran was a big one. He's been doing a lot of things amongst his team and his people, where when you go to an Ed Sheeran concert, if your name doesn't match on like an ID, then you can't come in. Unless then you've been through the proper routes to say, oh, my father bought this ticket for me or whatever. There is obviously leeway for that. But if you know, gone would be the days of people buying tickets outside the venue for quadruple, you know, face value. So I think if Amazon could, and Amazon, there's no doubt in my mind that Amazon could find a solution to that problem, all of a sudden that could take a lot of artists and events to Amazon just for that feature alone. So it's a curious one, very curious.
Yeah, I will have to see. I mean, it's like I said, it's not an announced anything. It's just it's a Reuters piece based on, I think it was 4 sources. So you know, usually Reuters doesn't just, you know, it's not one of these,
they don't publish rubbish. No,
those out stuff just because, you know, they usually source their stuff pretty good. So
yeah, it's not fake news. That's another story. Anyway, moving on very quickly before we get too political. Facebook Marketplace expands into Europe. Now, this is a curious one. Again, Facebook Marketplace was first introduced in 2007 in the US and has since relaunched last year in the US and the UK. And you'd imagine, Richard, that it's going pretty well due to this huge expansion which they just rolled out last week. Tell us more.
Yeah, you'd think. I don't know. I mean, they say they do well, but here's the problem: they don't make any money off it. You know, it's a free listing thing, and most of the transactions happen offline. So effectively, it's a free Craigslist kind of operation. Anything that's free is going to do well. You know, how do you change? What do you do once you change it to a monetization program? It's going to be the big question.
That is the key. And the interesting one with Facebook Marketplace is it is a very C2C market. It's customers selling to customers. Yeah. There's no real room for businesses on there. So I'm sure eBay and Amazon aren't really that worried just yet. The worry is, though, is Facebook's audience. We just spoke about audience. Facebook have by far their biggest audience. Over 1 billion people. They have over 1 billion people's contact details.
But I totally agree with you. But then again, why haven't they done anything? They've had this advantage for so many years. They could have gone and bought somebody like Shopify years ago that was already, you could see they were going somewhere. Heck, I think I saw just this morning a story from somebody proposing that Facebook should buy eBay. You know, I mean, or buy Etsy or whatever. You know, it just seems like it's these tepid kind of ways to get into e-commerce, and I don't know that they have the interest to do that. I almost have the feeling that they, even this deal, and this was the next story, I believe, it's about the eBay. Integrating eBay deals here in the United States. Well, they rolled it out to like this very, very small number of people to try. And so, I mean, everything they do when it comes to e-commerce is just sort of like these mini baby steps. And Facebook is typically not a company that takes baby steps. So it just almost seems like, I don't know. I don't know what to make out of that. It's kind of weird.
It is a curious one, and I totally get what you're saying. There's no monetization from it, and I'm trying to think, what would Zuckerberg say? You think about the revolutions that have come from Facebook recently. Obviously, Messenger getting its own app, and they bought WhatsApp, they bought Instagram, and it's all been very social.
Yeah.
And I just can't help but feel and we've mentioned this before, and this is why, but the Amazon social network could potentially do very well, because as we've seen out east, social e-commerce is very powerful.
And how do you do marketplace with the way Alibaba is doing it in China? I mean, it just doesn't add up,
We just have nothing here that's doing something similar, and I totally agree with you. It's whether Facebook don't see how they could make it work, which I don't believe. They've got some of the brightest people in the world working at Facebook. I'm sure between them they could come up with a very cool idea for a marketplace. Whether they just don't want to fight that battle right now, they're just not interested to take on Amazon and eBay. But in my mind, there's only a handful of people who could, and Facebook is one of them.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, if Facebook, from today to tomorrow would say, here's what we're going to do with e-commerce, and here's how you're going to be able to integrate it with, we'll give you some tools to do bulk uploads and this and that. I mean, people would flock to it like crazy,
Absolutely. So. Absolutely. It's an interesting one. But on that note, we might as well tie that ties in quite nicely with Facebook teaming up with eBay to offer daily deals. So how does this all tie in together?
Well, it looks like it's just they're trying to put more content there. Again, they're not making any money off it. eBay is the only one to confirm that they're actually doing it. But it is rolled out to a very small group of people, as I just said. And there's, again, there's nothing, it's not exclusive. It's nothing like that. So it's not, it's just another one of these things that just sort of like, okay, we're doing something, I mean, it's just, I don't know, I don't have an answer. I can't even, usually when I look at sort of business ideas and where they're going, oh, this would be great. Yeah, this is where they're going to take this. But at the pace they're doing things, it's just like snail's pace for commerce.
Yeah, especially for a sort of a tech giant like that. I mean, you look at, we talk about Amazon every week and what they've rolled out this week. So yeah, it is curious. And so from my understanding.
Yeah, look at F8. They talked about the virtual reality and augmented reality. In 1 year, they took something from, you know, that used to take a desktop computer, now a smartphone can render. You know, I mean, the amount even internally that they can, you know, that they improve all kinds of other technology. They went and basically copied everything Snapchat is doing. You know,
yeah,
and they rolled it out on the various platforms, whether it's Instagram or Facebook. They have the chops to do this. You know. To do it, they just don't seem to be interested. That's just that's the only explanation that I can think of. They have no real interest in e-commerce. Maybe they see this marketplace as sort of like, well, it's community, it's people talking to each other, and then that builds ad space. Opportunities. That's the only thing that would make sense to me right now.
It's a weird one. So this integration with Facebook and eBay does the daily deals page in the marketplace on Facebook just take you to the eBay daily deals page? Is it as
it takes you to the item? Yeah, and then the entire checkout happens on the item.
On eBay.
It's within the browser. I mean, and again, so few people have access to it. I couldn't even test it, so I had to go with everything I could find about it. And it looks like it's a browser within Facebook. You know, obviously there's a browser application within Facebook already, and it just works from within. But there's no integration that I could gather in the way of, you know, the accounts, or that you store information in your Facebook account that gets transferred over, all the stuff that you would normally try to do to streamline the checkout process. It seems to be like, okay, well, here we have this, and I don't know.
It's a curious one. It's another one which we're going to have to keep our eyes on to see if Facebook actually do anything with e-commerce. I do think the whole Amazon piece with, is it Spark? Are they calling it? Spark. I think Amazon Spark. I think that's gonna force people's hands somewhere.
I would think so.
You can't think Facebook and Instagram are gonna sleep on that opportunity.
Well, and the other thing you have to look at is not just Spark,
although they already have.
You know,
we hasten to add.
The reality is that in China, Alibaba is doing it. So that's a part of Facebook's reach is in these other markets. And so you have on one side Alibaba doing Southeast Asia, you have Amazon doing, let's call it the West, North America and Europe. Okay, you know what? If you're not going to do something, it's all encroaching on you. So at some point in time, you have to sit there and go like, well, these people are already doing this. They might be taking away my social media business, because all of a sudden people are just going to talk to each other on these commerce platforms because they're already on them. Oh, look at my handbag. Oh, I bought this today. You know, I mean, let's face it. If you look on Twitter and Facebook, you see lots of people showing off stuff that they bought or that they like, and this is what I'm wearing. Blah 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 blah. You know, so.
And it is curious because, as we mentioned last week or a couple of weeks ago, Amazon is encroaching into the East quite quickly. They're going after Singapore. There's rumors of South Korea. They've got Australia's coming soon. All of a sudden, Amazon could be everywhere. And like I said, that then just makes it even more of why are you not doing something about this? When you already have the leading, by a long way, social media platform, why are you not integrating e-commerce?
Right.
Who knows? One to keep an eye on for sure. Next up, we've got eBay releases promoted listings for single quantity items. Now, obviously, this was the news of eBay rolling out promoted listings, which I think they mentioned back in the spring update of this year, that they were bringing these back. Previously, it was sponsored ads that you'd see, and they were actually external links that would take you off of eBay onto other websites. They've since got rid of those and now replacing them with promoted listings. And I believe for every, top rated seller, they get $20 or $25 per quarter or per month.
Yeah, there's a little credit that they throw at you.
To incentivize you using these. So what's going on with that, Richard? What's
so single listings? Here we go again. It's like I still sell on eBay, so You know, and I don't sell anything single at the moment, so
No,
I never
you do
looked
the
at
variation stuff, yeah.
you know, and I think most of the you know, your audience with the, you know, with Understanding Eves has been mostly businesses. You have 10, 20, hundreds of these items. So single is never really an item or a concept we looked at. But from the reaction I saw at eBay Open, it seems like a lot of sellers were looking for the ability to promote single items, whether it's unique items, whether it is a collectible of some kind. And so this is now they can do that, and they got a lot of applause for it when they announced it there. So clearly, I'm going to say it must be a good thing for all the rest of the sellers that are doing things differently than we are doing, you know. So
yeah, I mean, it's that, or I mean, there's a few different ways you could look at this. If you've got that one product which you're struggling to sell, sticking it on a promoter, you know, that one item left, or if you're selling, you know, collectibles or, you know, antique style things where you only have the one-offs, then,
yeah,
you know, I know there is a lot of eBay sellers who still love the platform after, you know, selling on there for 10, 15 years. Maybe this is perfect for them. But like you said, you know, putting my sort of business consultant hat on, single products are not sexy. They're not a great product to start because they take an awful lot of an investment for a one-time purchase or one-time sale. You know, you have to do the listing, take the pictures, do the item specifics, do everything else, and you sell it once, then all that time and effort's gone. So having quantity of items is always better because that sort of investment of your time and energy gets spread over a longer period and over more and more sales. So it is a curious one, but yeah, maybe we're missing something.
Yeah, and on the single item side of it, there's a little bit of a eBay community discussion going on, and that supposedly eBay is now going to require certain brands to include UPC numbers.
Yeah.
It's not verified by eBay, so we didn't turn it into a story because it could be just also a seller having a problem, not understand what they're doing, because that happens more often than not. So, you know, when you read through these community boards, you sometimes scratch your heads like, you see, these people have been selling for how long? You know,
yeah.
It's like they can't get the most basic things straight. So we never know what the reality behind it is. We do know that eBay in the past had announced that UPCs, EAN codes and stuff are going to be more a requirement, but not on used items. So, you know, if somebody has a branded item from XYZ brand and you know, and it's used, how would they know what the UPC code is? It doesn't make sense to me, but it goes back to the whole single item listing concept. It's like it becomes a bit of a pain in the rear, you know, and so, but that's like you said, there's lots of people doing it, so clearly they're making money, else they wouldn't be doing it.
Absolutely. So moving on, Amazon kills movie DVDs in UK and Germany by closing down LoveFilm. So again, I'm guessing this is just a move towards streaming, to on demand, to, you know, the likes of Amazon Instant Video, Netflix, and the whole host of others out there, the other streaming services. Is it Hulu and I can't remember what else you have out in the US.
Disney just announced, I think yesterday or maybe not yesterday, on Friday, that they're going to start their own streaming service and basically pull out of all the other platforms. So I mean, we're going to end up with all these crazy different streaming services. So it'll be interesting to see how that all works. But obviously, I mean, I have to be honest. I saw LoveFilms. Like, what, Amazon's in the triple X rated movie business.
Have you not heard of LoveFilm before?
No,
No.
I guess not.
See, that was for us in the UK. It must have been a UK company. I'm not sure, but I mean, LoveFilm has been around here for, I bet, at least 7 years, 5 or 7 years. And it was basically like an online version of Blockbuster, where you had an account, a monthly subscription, you'd send off, you know, you'd request something, they would post you the DVD, you'd watch it, and they'd send you like a prepaid envelope, and you'd post it back when you're done with it.
That's how Netflix started here in the United States.
Right. Okay. So LoveFilm must have been now a version of Netflix, how it originally started, and then Amazon bought LoveFilm, again, many years ago now. And then
probably thinking like, hey, this is, wanted to build the European Netflix because Netflix wasn't really in Europe, especially with the DVD program. I think they never did DVDs outside of the United States, and they might have not even done it in Canada. I'm not 100% sure on that one, but and that's the interesting thing, and I have this in that piece, is like when you look at Netflix's subscriptions on the DVD side, they're just going downhill like there's no tomorrow.
I can't remember the last time I actually watched a DVD, like a physical DVD. Everything I ever do watch is through Amazon Instant Video or through Netflix.
I think I threw my DVD player out a year ago.
Have you missed it?
No.
No, exactly. So I mean, it is a dying. It's basically going the same way as video did, but the thing to replace it is now a non-physical thing. It's a file. So I can understand why Amazon would be closing down LoveFilm. Makes total sense.
Now, in one part of the, so I obviously try to always look at the e-commerce side of the business, and so what I wonder is, a lot of us are done with DVDs, but there's still quite a bit of a market. And I think in your city there, you have this little outfit called Music Magpie, I think it is called.
We do.
They're the largest eBay.
They came out of nowhere.
Seller. Yeah.
They came out of nowhere. Like
£100 million a year that they now turn over. And what do they do? CDs, DVDs, and things like that. And they started, I think they invested or started the company. I'm not sure which one it was, called Declutter here, where you basically just send them all the DVDs and CDs that you have, and they pay you based upon what the value system that they have to them. And
it's basically a flipping model, just turned into an e-commerce. You wanted cash for your old DVDs and films, as long as they worked. You send them to them, they'd give you couple of quid, here and there. They then sell them for £5 a piece as like a used DVD. So they were easily making, and they were easily making 100, 200, 300% profit margin per item. And they just scaled that business. I think they hire over 1,000 people now.
Yeah, something like that. I read too.
Huge operation. But I mean, I've got friends of mine who.
The DVD thing is, for me, it's like maybe there's an opportunity there for niche players. Maybe not going to be able to next Music Magpie, but maybe there's something if you can find a niche where they're, like I could think, for example, kids movies. Once kids get, every age, after you don't, if they're 3 years old, you have one kind of movie. If they're 4 years old, another one. So there's a way to maybe make money with kids movies that just specialize on that. I don't know, just thrown out an idea. And so whenever you see a big guy like Amazon and potentially Netflix, even though they haven't announced they're going to do that, but I mean, let's look at the numbers. It's going to have to happen at some point. Then there's always an opportunity for somebody to come in and say, hey, I can make money with this in some form of fashion.
Absolutely. I think that's the interesting thing. Obviously, there will be some like proper film buffs out there who would argue that, if they don't have fast internet and they can't, stream in full HD or 4K, then Blu-rays are still the best quality they can watch. And again, I've got friends of mine who have like 500 DVDs. They just like the collection. They like to be able to see them in the display case, all alphabetically ordered. And it's like, I get it. If you want to collect them, that's great. And that is, I think, where the market or the opportunity is for these DVD sellers. But obviously, as far as what LoveFilm or what LoveFilm was and what now Amazon Instant Video is and Netflix, it's all streaming. It's convenience. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me, but I totally appreciate it. I think it's a great spot, which you said about the opportunity for e-commerce sellers to potentially get in and make some money on some DVDs and CDs.
You never know.
You never know. Got to be in it to win it. So next up, we've got Amazon delivers in 2 minutes or less. Richard, how the hell is this possible?
Well, it's not really a delivery. It's just kind of it's a vending machine concept is really what it is. And they're doing these, they've had these lockers. I think they actually started in the UK first, and then they started expanding them here in the US a little bit, so they're they're setting up these lockers which have common products, and obviously it's mostly going to be like snack foods and fast food, things like that. Especially that you can use it at universities, because the first 5 are going to on campuses, and then they also are going to have things like chargers, some tech items, and obviously their own stuff, Amazon Fire tablets, blah. So the idea is to have this instant gratification. So you can go on your smartphone, you can go find what you want, and it'll tell you, hey, you can pick this up at our locker here, and you can have it in 2 minutes. Probably I'd pick 2 minutes because I figured that's about as long as it takes to take the credit card information, hit send, and you get an email back and says, go pick up your stuff, and unless you have to stand right in front of the box, then you can probably do it in under 2 minutes, maybe. But the interesting thing is they did talk about wanting to do cash, and they just said, no, we want to do it with the app. And so that brings me back to the whole thing of them, they don't really get into the cash business. They're not in the cash company. All of a sudden now somebody's going to have to take the cash. You have to hire a company that picks up the cash, all these other things that go along with that, and I think they just didn't want to get in that full vending business. But it's interesting to see where this might lead, because they do have some agreements around the country, like with 7-Elevens and other places, to have these lockers. That they're also going to roll out these residential lockers. Can they combine the two? Obviously not going to sell soda and snacks at a 7-Eleven, but they might be able to sell some other things that way there. Not sure, on that one, but maybe there is some combination. It's like, how many of these different types of lockers can they come up? At some point, people are going to get confused. They're going to say, well, okay, what's this locker? Is this, do I get instant gratification, or do I have to wait till tomorrow?
Yeah.
So
no, I totally get it. It's a curious one, and it has obviously some implications regarding, the food delivery, obviously with Whole Foods and the opportunities there. And I totally get it. I would avoid cash at all costs if I was Amazon, because cash is a slowly dying payment system. Everything now is pretty much done by cash, contactless, chip and pin, PayPal. There's so many ways, Apple Pay, Android Pay. There's so many ways to pay now without actually having to physically hold money. So Amazon, as a tech company, as an e-commerce company, they've got no business handling cash. They're just not set up for it. So yeah, I think it's a curious one. We'll see if it takes off. I'm undecided. I think still getting it delivered to your home is the most convenient, but if you're not going to be in and you want to pick something up on the way home rather than have to wait for it, vending machine style could be a way to go. So I guess
and they did say that they're going to adjust some pricing to realize that there's no shipping involved. So that might be one of the incentives. And clearly, usually when you go like to Amazon, you want to buy, let's say, snack items, they're going to offer you a bag of, a box of 6 versus a small. So I think that's where all this is just more training of the ecosystem. This is conditioning.
Use Amazon for everything. Yeah,
use Amazon for everything. That's it. Buy your tickets, buy your snacks, buy everything.
Yeah, you want cinema tickets? Here you go. Why not get some popcorn with that?
Exactly.
Here's the nearest vending machine on the way to the cinema.
You got it.
Exactly. It all ties in very nicely. So enough about the global domination of Amazon. Let's go on to Etsy. Has updated sellers on its new search tests. What are Etsy up to?
So we're going to Etsy from global domination to somebody who's trying to figure out how to survive. Is that what we're doing? All right. Etsy is experimenting, so let's give them credit for that. And they did listen to some feedback from sellers that were saying, well, what about us? We have only unique items. You're now going to favor the people who have 10 of these things. That's not really what Etsy is all about. It was supposed to be, or generally is perceived to be, about unique items. So they're trying to come up with ways to highlight sellers, I guess, that have good sales but unique items as best-selling. they didn't really define it, because they seem to be in that mode right now where you take a bowl of spaghetti and you throw it at the wall and see what sticks. And then if and then if something sticks, you go, this is a good idea, let's go with it. The scarcity idea, which is the thing with the how many are in stock, and they only show there's only one available. That seems to be something that they're going to stick with. But as far as like the rankings and badges they're going to display on various listings to highlight or promote, that's still quite a bit of experimentation. But let's give them credit. They seem to be doing things quickly. They announce something, people actually give them feedback. They listen and say, yeah, okay, well, we'll do something different, or we'll try to, adjust it to be a little different. So from that point of view, I think it's a good thing. Clearly, I'm still of the belief that they will be sold by the end of the year, but who knows, but they're doing good things. The only thing they're not really doing is marketing. So
yeah, because they got rid of all the marketing team.
Yeah, all the marketing people.
Which is a curious one. Yeah, okay, so that's going on at Etsy. Now, what's this about Alipay and Yelp to extend US services for Chinese tourists?
It's this kind of was an oddball that I dug up, and because I never really thought about Chinese tourism too much, And then when the more I dug into it, I realized that Chinese tourism today is the largest amount of tourism out there.
Wow.
There's no more tourists in the world today but the Chinese, and it's scheduled to double, almost double in 10 years. So 86% is what they're forecasting.
Wow.
And so what Alipay is doing is they're coming to the United States. They're not trying to be the next PayPal or Apple Pay. And trying to beat out those people. They want to be complementary to what's already in existence. And so with Yelp, they're working on it, or they're going to release an app that is effectively in the native language, Mandarin, and so people can get information about restaurants and services. So I think right now it's going to be initially rollout's going to be restaurants. It's starting out in New York, Las Vegas, and Los Angeles. New York and Los Angeles have a relatively large Chinese community, so there's a lot of family travel there. Las Vegas is just, everybody goes to Las Vegas for one reason or another. I don't know why. And so in any case, it's to make it easier for the Chinese traveler to go to a restaurant. They get right now the menus and a lot of the information will still be in English, but the idea is to translate it over. They're going to use their own currency, so they know immediately how much something's going to cost, and they'll be able to read reviews and stuff in Mandarin. So it's a way to make a Chinese traveler feel more comfortable in the Western world, I guess. Yeah. And yeah, I think it's a great idea. And as a matter of fact, I mean, it kind of rolls into the next story that we have, which is about Toronto. Toronto is going to be Gateway 17 in Canada. It's kind of the same way Gateway 17 was in Detroit, but they're adding that whole tourism part of it too, which they didn't have in Detroit. And they're going to talk about that in Canada. There's 600,000 Chinese tourists come to Canada every year, and they have a pretty lively and vibrant Chinese community and culture in Canada. I mean, Canada's
they have that in Toronto, especially. I mean, you'll probably have seen that yourself, Richard. You were there not long ago. But I know for a couple of years when I was there, big Chinese population in Toronto, especially. So it makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, it's a very multicultural environment in Canada. So they are going to tie tourism in a little bit more on the Canadian Gateway 17. So all of this, kind of makes a lot of sense. It brings Alibaba into the North American markets through
the Alipay, I guess. Yeah,
through Alipay. And I think it's a great idea. I think it's a good idea for businesses here in the U.S. You have to opt in. You're not automatically opted in. You have to be on Yelp. You have to opt in through Yelp, and to accept Alipay. And it is I think the backbone of it is First Data, which is one of the data processors, credit card processors here in the U.S. So it gets handled all in the U.S. The data doesn't travel outside, I guess. Let's see. I mean, 3 cities to start with. Let's see where it goes. But when you look at the Chinese tourism dollars that are being spent, you got to sit there and go like, yeah, I think if I was running a restaurant or something like that, I want to be part of it.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, there's actually a restaurant, a Korean restaurant, just around the corner from me, who actually takes Alipay as a payment method. So that is, yeah, and like I said, you go in there, it is largely Korean, Chinese people in there. Food is brilliant, but it's.
I always have a philosophy: if you go to ethnic foods, always go find out if the people in there eating are from the same ethnicity as the food.
Then you know it's good. Then you know it's good.
If you go to a place and there's ethnic food and there's nobody from that ethnicity in that restaurant, you're like, ugh.
They know
you know you're in the wrong place.
Yeah, exactly. So on that note, we've only got 2 news pieces left. We probably won't have time to go through the extra bits of news, but head over to eSellerCafe.com and you'll be able to see them all there. So with that said, the penultimate piece is demystifying eBay questions and answers. Is this about the new Q&A function coming this week, I believe?
Yes, it is. And this is also a great example of how to think about what you write before you post it, because we're demystifying, and I'm like, this is a story that, that a lot of people are completely confused by this. And by using a word like demystifying, I made sure that no one reads the story. I mean, it's just, it got virtually no traction of all the stories I created. So it's like, okay, so let's talk about what it's really about. It's about explaining how these new product reviews work, or this Q&A, not product reviews, Q&A works. eBay announced at eBay Open that they have created about 200 million product and browse pages. So this involves specifically these product pages, which, as you've discussed before, are similar to kind of an Amazon product page. And then below that, you have all the listings. And so what they're doing is, because people go on to these pages, or will be going on these pages now, they're going to look for information. Not only they're going to have catalog information was available, but also information that what might have been mined from the item specifics people use in their listings, but people might have questions about it. So they can now go to a general Q&A section, effectively. It's kind of in the product section, and say, okay, is this available in red? I just throwing out whatever, and then any seller or any buyer that has bought the product can actually answer the question. Oh, okay. And so the idea is to provide quicker information about the product itself. These are not designed to be about shipping or specific things having to do with the listing, like, oh, is it really like it shows in the picture? The typical normal eBay questions.
Yeah. Is this blue? Is this blue dress blue?
Yeah, it's this blue dress blue. Right, exactly. And so that is so it's on the product pages specifically. There's an opt-in function in this, which was that was the part that wasn't completely explained. I'd have to look at it once they actually have it fully rolled out. Supposedly it's live now, but I believe it's not in, like, since I'm an eBay Motors seller, it's not in eBay Motors, so that I'm gonna have to list something else and see how it works in a non-eBay Motors area to learn more about it. But now I lost my train of thought.
So it sounds similar to sort of the Amazon, because Amazon have their own little Q&A section just above the product description.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's the best way to put it.
I didn't think about that. Yes, you're correct. That's the best way to put it. Just like the Amazon. So call it just another Amazonification of an eBay.
There we go. Just a further Amazonification of eBay. There we go.
So it's like,
but I think it is. It's a good feature. I've used it myself a few times on Amazon, and it is handy. That, and on some listings there's some absolutely brilliant answers to some really ridiculous questions, so it can be comedy gold as well. You never know what you're going to get.
Like you said, is this blue dress really blue?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, what color? Definitely blue.
What shade of blue is this blue?
Yeah, exactly. I have a black and white monitor. Is this dress gray? No. Anyway, moving on to the final piece, which is what 3 words. Now, this is an interesting one. It's when you first told me about this, Richard, I was sort of a bit like, they seem to be solving a problem. Yeah, WTF, they're solving a problem that doesn't exist. But then I thought about it more. I was like, no, it doesn't exist for me. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist for everyone else. So tell us more. What 3 words and what are they aiming to do?
Yeah, so I had the exact same thing. It's like, wow, this is a problem that needs to be solved. Now, we have to realize, you may not have good internet yet, but you have a proper street address, and somebody addresses something to you with that address, it generally shows up. And the same thing with me. I do have proper internet, but
all right, no need to rub it in. Should be here tomorrow.
Tomorrow, exactly. You're staying up all night, right?
Yeah.
So in any case, so in most of the developed world has proper addressing. The postal systems have been around for a while. You say 123 Main Street, blah, city, state, and the postal code, the zip code, and the stuff gets there. So what they are trying to highlight or bring up is the fact, among other things, other uses besides e-commerce, that you really 75% of the world does not have a proper addressing system in place. People live in huts. They live in, on plots and tents. They may live in shanty towns. They may live in the, in the slums in Rio, or in, Sao Paulo or wherever. And some of these people want to buy things online, and they actually used examples of that. And in the Middle East, there's quite, and I don't know how many, if you send something to the Middle East, a lot of times you get a P.O. box address. And I never quite understood that till somebody explained to me, oh, that's just a P.O. box. It's not really a postal box, but it's a P.O. box of the house that you're sending it to. You have to define the house, and you have to find the, if you just put the P.O. box number down, then they don't know what to do. And then they have to call. So it seems like there's a lot of times these courier companies do have to call. And, now I'm trying to think. What was it? Amerix? What was the courier company that signed up with this? Now I'm lost my. What's Aramex, right? Aramex. It's the
Aramex. Yeah, largest courier service.
Yeah, the largest courier is Aramex. So they start out in the Middle East. They obviously have a presence in Southeast Asia as well. Technically, they go to the United States and to Europe, but that's all through other people. The main business is in the Middle East. So they started using it, and because what this company did is they divided up the world into 3 meter by 3 meter squares. And for you Americans out there, that's about 3 yards to 3 yards. round big, yeah. just
put about 3.2 yards.
Yeah, 3.2 yards by 3.2 yards. Okay, so for everyone in the United States, that's what 3 meters by 3 meters is. So now you put on the address line this exact location, and they actually have an app, and probably can't really do this with on here, where you can kind of sort of find out what your address is. You can put in your address, and they'll tell you exactly what the 3 words are, and they're randomly chosen, and they're chosen in a way that they are not similar. So, for example, if it's blue sky. The blue dot sky dot red, okay, then the square next to you is not called blue dot sky dot green. It's going to be like
totally random.
So to keep them all the way and to be able to pinpoint exactly where you are. Now, for e-commerce in the developing world, I mean, this is great, okay, and there's actually integrations for Shopify, Magento, WooCommerce, and BigCommerce are already in place, where basically you add this information to the existing addressing that you're using. And I can tell you that I personally sent something to the middle of nowhere in Namibia one time. The guy told me, well, right on here, this, and this. It was almost like a description. Okay, you go 5 miles down this road, past the tree you see in the field of cows, right? I mean, effectively the courier called them, and then they actually ended up meeting at a gas station,
Amazing.
Because just to get it delivered. So this could define exactly where this person is. And of course, in places like Africa, that's important, and but it's also important in a lot of places in South America and other areas where where there's still not really the proper addressing system. And they have 7 countries that are using it as part of their postal system right now. They're already incorporating into that. Maybe they'll get more that'll help the use of it. I think it's a great idea. Now, I don't want to spend too much time on the next part. There's obviously humanitarian side of it. Those, like the UN and other NGOs can use this type of service to pinpoint exactly where something needs to go, because you have a person somewhere in a refugee camp and says, look, I need a truckload of water here. How do you tell the guy where to go? They can define that with this type of app, and that's what a lot of what they're doing. I think right now is the big use for it. The other use that we could see with it is drone deliveries, because you put down 123 Main Street, where are you going to want it delivered? Front door, back door? I mean, there's not you'd have to have some kind of landing pod or something. So with this, you could define in your backyard 3 meter by 3 meter squares, like drone deliver here. And there's several drone companies that are experimenting with that. If you go to the store and if you go to their website, I think you start realizing that this is a pretty damn good idea. The one criticism that they have is that it's not open source. They control the naming nomenclature. Okay. There's another secondary criticism that it's no spatial definition. So you'd have to still have, I guess, suite numbers or something like that. Yeah. But I think that's relatively easily overcome. So let's see where it goes. They in a very short period of time, they seem to have gotten their hands in a lot of different cookie jars, and there's large companies that are experimenting with it. To the best of my knowledge, I couldn't find any reference to a UPS, a FedEx, a DHL, or an Amazon. Or a major postal system, i.e. Western, Deutsche Post, Royal Mail, or USPS, trying to work with this. But we don't know. They might have been contacted. They may be experimenting with it to see if it's something that they can use. It's definitely sounds stupid, but it's more clever than
than it first initially sounds, for sure. Yeah. I think that will be the true test, is implementation and integration of this. If think about it, I live in an apartment building. A 3 by 3 meter square would not work for me, and like I said, I'm like 8 floors up. Like I said, how did he bring height into it? It's a curious one, and by no means is it perfect, but it does, like you say, here in the UK we have postcodes and we have pretty good addresses and numbers and all that. Yeah. A few years ago, Ireland didn't have postcodes, so it used to rely on the postman knowing which family lived at which house often, because even out in the countryside, some places didn't have like proper names and numbers. So even
I would probably think that like Reykjavik might be there's some postcodes there, but once you go outside of Reykjavik and the rest of Iceland, you probably
it's the great house on the hill. But like I said, the same with like for Africa, for parts of the Philippines, for like you said, for these more developing countries, this could be a huge game changer. But in order for it to be widely used, it needs the people, like you say, DHL, Royal Mail, USPS, and then even some of the big courier companies to start utilizing this and recognizing it as a delivery system. And it's so it has a ways to go for the test.
It has a ways to go on the e-commerce side of it as far as the acceptance of it. I think the idea of how to use it and to use it for deliveries, that's the easy part. It's the
absolutely, it is literally the integration. Can the companies decipher very quickly what rich soup noble means, and go from there.
That was the White House Oval Office.
That's the Oval Office, absolutely. Rich soup. So curious one, absolutely is a curious one. And with that said, I know we have run over slightly on time. Let me
do this real quick. I'll just run through the other ones so people know what we were talking about.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. So UPS is getting into B2B payment systems. If you are this is not B2C, this is business to business. If you're buying from China or exporting, UPS is going to have now a way to handle the whole thing, money, logistics, everything. So look at that story. We had a little funny one the other day with Trump tweets and Amazon dropped like 5% or something like that. Yeah. But that was all, like 3 hours later, it was all made up. He got all upset again about something that Bezos
about something.
Yeah, he's about the only person right now in the world that can probably bring the Amazon stock down, at least temporarily, for a few percentage points. A company called Printful launches an Etsy integration offering fulfillment and print-on-demand services. This is kind of interesting because they can do single items such as T-shirts, prints, all kinds of stuff. Obviously, if you're an artist and you sell something, maybe a lot of artists sell prints of unique pieces in a way to make more money from a design that they created. They're also going to add a fulfillment service to it, which is not at the same level as Amazon, but give the story a read. There might be, if you're on Etsy, there might be something there for you. Huge Amazon sales tax fight coming up. And you know what? We're going to shelve this one till next week because that actually requires a little more discussion. So we'll put that on for next week. But if you want to find out what's happening there, go read that. Customers like to complain. Kind of an interesting one I wrote about my story, and American Airlines actually tweeting me back to tell me, yes, we know you're always ready, because read the story. It's kind of funny. But it goes back to customer service is really important, and maybe putting it out there is a way to go in order to show how much you care. And last one is Glossy Box acquired by the Hut Group, and Walmart might be eyeing Birchbox. 2 stories, actually, 2 separate stories. Both links are there. And give that a read just to kind of keep up to date with what a Walmart might be buying and what somebody else already bought.
Yeah, the Hut Group, huge sort of independent seller here in the UK. They own MyProtein and a handful of other brands. Just been and bought Glossy Box, getting into the beauty subscription service. Again, beauty is huge, forever growing. So again, if the Hut Group are seeing opportunities there, chances are the opportunity is there. And the final piece, which I missed very briefly, was this week we had a solution spotlight once again, this week with Parcel Station. James, the co-founder of Parcel Station, wrote a bit of an introduction about his company, what they do. If you're in the UK and you're a seller, check out the article. Like I said, link is in the description underneath. James, really nice guy. I'm hoping to go. He's a local guy here in Manchester. His head office is in Stockport, which is just on the outskirts. So I said I would go and pay him a visit soon. Maybe take a camera, do an interview with James, take a look at his operation there. I think that would be quite good. So hopefully, when the calendars align, we can get that sorted. But yeah, if you don't know,
the moon and the sun align. Oh no!
They don't here, unfortunately. They do with you today, I believe, but not with us.
It's still light outside.
When is that? When is the eclipse?
It's supposed to happen, I think, in Florida around 3:30 or something, or 3 or 3:30, and it's like an 85% or something here.
All right, yeah.
The world is not
like the middle, the middle is getting it best.
But if you go to eSellerCafe, I did manage to get the eclipse into today's news.
You did. I was very impressed. Very impressed.
So we'll talk about that one next week as well.
Yeah, we'll see if the eclipse affected e-commerce sales. If everybody started buying sunglasses or those fancy glasses. Who knows? With that said, that has been the news for today. I'll do a quick recap of the main news. We talked about Hal Lawton leaving eBay, Amazon versus Ticketmaster, Facebook Marketplace expanding into Europe, as well as teaming up with eBay to offer daily deals on the platform. eBay doing promoted listings for single quantity items. Then we had a look at Amazon killing Love Film and getting out of the DVD business in Germany and the UK. Amazon doing vending machines and being able to deliver in 2 minutes or less. Etsy updates on sellers' new search tests, and Alipay and Yelp to extend into the US services for Chinese tourists, which we since discovered is a huge market. Which ties in nicely with Alibaba Gateway 17 coming to Toronto in September 25th. Again, huge Chinese population or Asian population within Canada and Toronto. So again, makes perfect sense for that. Demystifying the eBay questions and answers. And finally, the what 3 words, the new kind of street address. Will it take off? Will it not? Who knows? But we will keep our eye on it. With that said, That is the end of this week's eSellerCafe News Roundup. Now, next week is Bank Holiday here in the UK. Matt may still be on holiday. I didn't even forgot to mention Matt this, but Matt has gone away potentially for the week if he doesn't escape and come back home early, which he has been known to do in the past. So we will see. Matt, that's why Matt's not been here this week. Next week, I will still be here. It's Bank Holiday, but I'll be here anyway. And yeah, that's it. So with that said,
and next Monday I'm flying again, but supposedly I will arrive around 9:30 in Miami in the morning. So I have an hour and a half to make it from the airport to home, which should be enough time. But considering how good my last 2 flights were,
yeah, you've had a few delays.
Late. Yeah, you might be doing it on your own.
I might be on my own. Yeah, I won't bank on Matt being back yet either. So yeah, you could just be stuck with me next week. But if so,
we'll see what happens.
I look forward to seeing you then, and I'm sure Richard will do his best to make it if he can. So with that said, thank you so much for watching this. Again, any comments, questions, anything that you feel is unclear, or anything that you don't know, ask in the comments down below. I will get back to you, I promise. And yeah, with that said, thank you, Richard, for joining us as always, and have a great week, everyone, and we'll catch you next week for another eSellerCafe News Roundup.
Nice.
We'll see you then.
See you then. Take care. Bye-bye.